Okay, everyone, I'm back. In our last video, we looked at different ways the Lord was showing me that the delusions of the wicked will come upon them as fear. The main thing I want to look at right now is just kind of backtrack just a little bit here in chapter 9, where the Lord was showing us about these beings that come out of the pit. Of course, as we read before, the shape of the locusts were likened to horses, prepared unto battle. And on their heads were, as it were, crowns of gold, and their face were as the faces of men, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. And they had breastplates, as were breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. Okay, a lot of what we see here, it says, were as, was like. So what the Lord is showing here, like I pointed out before, the locust is to symbolize how they will swarm and how they will spread across the land, leaving it desolate. Okay, it's a characteristic of these creatures or these beings or these demonic entities. But the thing that I wanted to point out was that these demons that come out of the pit, they're going to take many forms in their deception and their delusion to put fear into man. We've seen much of that. We know that Satan has conditioned our minds on the alien agenda and the zombie apocalypse, and he's even conditioned our minds about this cosmic event that's going to take place. I mean, we've seen that played out over and over again. The thing here is kind of like a reverse conditioning as far as how the news media plays it out, because they always make everything seem like it's just fine, nothing to worry about. And I don't think that we are told the truth about this particular type of occurrences. But it's always about deception with Satan, okay? And the Lord clearly tells us that fear is not of God, okay? One thing I want to point out is, like in the verses that I used before that were speaking of fear, it clearly was speaking of fear being something that comes upon the wicked. It comes, and those that have fear, these things will come as a snare upon them. That's why it is so utterly important that we seek salvation through Christ and cling to our faith in Him, because it's the only thing that is going to keep us from being blinded by the deceptions that Satan is going to bring. I'm trying to remember just exactly which verse it's in, but I read it just a few moments ago about how, if it were possible, even the elect would be deceived. I think it was in Matthew 24. But the delusions and the deception that is fixing to be perpetrated on mankind is going to be horrendous. That's what God's trying to show us. I believe that what He's showing us here in these scriptures is that these demonic beings that come out of this pit, they're going to come in many forms. Just like I was saying, the alien agenda, the zombie apocalypse. Then what we was discussing in the last video concerning this description of these creatures here. And the picture that the Lord put in my mind and led me to be able to show you these types of things are going to be used to put fear in man because of the things that man has entertained in his mind and the things that he has tried to, especially those that seek to dominate the world. Satan's been using them, and they're playing games with people, mind games, okay? And it's about the fear factor. They want that fear in place because people who are afraid can be convinced of anything to help eliminate that fear. Okay, we've looked at, I'm going to get back on track here. We looked at here these creatures, these beings, these demonic beings that come out of the pit, and how a lot of their attributes were that of locusts, of horses. They had faces of men, hair of women, and they had stingers or tails, stings in their tails as like scorpion. So, and I showed you some pictures that the Lord had led me to kind of give you some idea of these type of horrific things that these demons will present themselves as to put fear in the hearts of man. Okay? I want to go back here to Joel again. And I want to point out a few things about these things over here in Joel. Now we know, okay, Joel chapter 2. Here in the King James Study Bible, this is subtitled The Day of the Lord. And it says the invading host, okay? I want to look at, here in verse 1, it says, blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord cometh, for it is nigh at hand. Now I want to show you how we know that this is referring to all these things I've been telling you are fixing to take place, and this falls within that time span. Because here we're seeing the alarm go out. And then in verse 2 we see a day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness. Okay, that takes us back to the darkness that we saw in Exodus 10:21, where it spoke of darkness that could even be felt. It also takes us back to Revelations 9, where it speaks of the darkness that how was it put it? Darkness of the sun and darkness in the air or of the air. So we know it wasn't just something blocking the sun. It is something that's literally in the air. It is a thick darkness, okay? And then it goes on to say, as the morning spread upon the mountains. And it, you know how in the morning when the sun rises, how it just slowly covers the land as it gets higher and higher in the sky. And that's what this is talking about. It just going to come as a wave across the land. And the Lord even showed me too. This is also, it's like a dual meaning. Where it says here, as the morning spread upon the mountains. In the mountains, he showed me a picture in my mind about like in the mornings when there's a heavy fog and it sets down over the mountains and it covers the mountains and it sinks down into the valley. And it's a thick fog that you can't see through. He was showing me this, a picture in my mind, as to the heaviness and the thickness of this darkness that's coming. And as we look further on down in the scriptures, here we see, right after that, it says, a great people and a strong. There has not been ever the like, neither shall be any more of it, even in the years or many generations. Okay, When we look at this and it says a great people and a strong, my mind goes back to in the further back in the Old Testament, where it spoke of the giants when the fallen angels went into the daughters of men and they had offspring, and they were referred to as mighty men and men of renown. They were giants. That's what this makes me think of, a great people and a strong. And then here in verse 3 it says, a fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth the land, is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness. Yea, and nothing shall escape them. So here again we're seeing this picture of them as they just envelop the land. And they devour everything plenteous in front of them and leave desolation behind them. And that is speaking directly to the characteristics of the locusts, okay? And here again we see, just as we saw in Revelations 9, the appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen so shall they run. Like the noise of chariots, on the tops of mountains shall they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. Before their face the people shall be much pained. And here again, the first thing that comes to mind here is how these stingers of these things are like scorpions. And see, we learned specifically that the purpose of that was nothing but for torment of men. And we also learned in 1 John 4:18 that it says that fear hath torment. So here is about inflicting fear. Of course, it's about inflicting pain, but it's about inflicting fear. Satan wants people to fear. Again, I say it is the fear factor that Satan is counting on being able to, that will enable him to have control of people. Then we get here to verse 7. Oh, wait a minute, we didn't finish here. It says, all faces shall gather blackness. Well, I looked that up. I did some homework on that. And it's about how once people are inflicted with pain and they have endured things for so long, it gets grievous to them and it becomes anguishing. It's an agony. And it's about how someone that's been sick for a long time or in bad health, or something has just devastated them for a long time, how they get that gauntly look about them. That's what this is referring to. In verse 7, they shall run like mighty men. See, here again we see that reference to what we see back in the Old Testament, how the offspring of the fallen angels and the daughters of men were referred to as mighty men and men of renown. So here it says, they shall run like mighty men. They shall climb the wall like men of war. And they shall march every one on his way, and they shall not break their ranks. Okay, this tells us that these demonic beings, they have a rank amongst them. And I believe what the Lord is showing me here is it's about all these different roles they will have to play, because we've got some demons that are going to take part in the alien deception. We've got some demons that are going to possess people and bring about this zombie apocalypse. And then we've got some demons that are just going to be involved in and probably possess even animals, because we see how God alluded to the mixing of DNA and the abomination that had been, and I believe he's going to use that against man. And these demons will play different roles. And so here it talks about everyone will be in his way. And let's see, everyone on his way will march on his way, which means he's going to know what he's supposed to be focused on. It's just like we as the bride. We are on this narrow path. We know what we are to do, and we stay focused on it. They are the same way about their duty, okay? And this about breaking rank. They each know what their job is, and they will fulfill it. And then we go on to verse 8. Well, I think I better cut this off. We're going on 16 minutes. I'll be back in a few minutes.